Thank you. So first of all, thank you for attending. My goal today, or the spirit of the presentation, is just to open the floor. We're going to talk a little bit about sales growth and where it's trending to from where it's been. And the three of us, Brian, Jason, myself, we have had careers in building sales teams, and executing against that change that's occurring in the marketplace. So we're just trying to share what we see. We're trying to be as agnostic as possible. Obviously, there's going to be nuances depending on your industry. And after this, if you are interested in talking more about sales, we love to do it. I know a lot of people don't like talking about sales, but truly, I love talking about sales. So if you want to talk about sales, give me a call, and I'd love to have that discussion with you. So let me make sure I know what I'm doing here. Next slide. Oop. Give it a sec. So when conceiving the presentation, we want to really talk about the movement that's occurring in sales. And you probably already see this. How many emails, phone calls do you get on a daily basis from sales? And how many of those do you really respond to? Okay. My answer is 0, right? Because it was what it used to be. It used to be a volume game. When all of us got into sales before, it was sending as many contacts as possible and getting a percentage response. That doesn't work anymore, okay? Because we are conditioned to move away from answering that type of sales. Very few responses occur that way. What's happening is a movement to proximity in sales. So how do you get close to your ideal client? And that's really important that you start to think in your business about how do I start creating proximity? The more you consider where they are, the more you'll start to think about ways to approach those clients. And we're going to talk about 3 of them before I open the roundtable. Those 3 discussion points are going to be how to create proximity is a sales system that you may consider, and Brian's going to talk about his methodology and a process he uses. Jason's going to talk about facilitating an experience, right? As a consumer, an experience is what brings you in. So Jay's going to talk about that. And then I'm going to talk about partnerships. Now partnerships isn't new, but I think it's something that's really important in building out your business and start to think in detail about how to create partners. Okay? And then we're going to open up to the floor, and any question you may have about certain sales techniques or about ways you're going about creating client contacts, myself, Brian, and Jason are open to answering them. So I'm going to start with Brian. And Brian, I'm just going to ask you for just 2 to 3 minutes. Can you explain to the team managing your sales teams and going to market? Tell them a little bit about your sales approach and what you think is important in terms of your modern sales systems and how you instruct your team to go to market.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Trevor. The first thing I just want to say is I want to give credit where credit is due. These are not my techniques. These are techniques borrowed from people who have been massively successful. So there's a gentleman named John McMahon who's kind of a legend in the sales industry when it comes to software. He wrote a book called The Qualified Sales Leader. If you're selling large, complicated products, it's a great read. Highly recommend it. And then there's a guy named Andy White who wrote a book on this system called Medic, which we'll talk about as well. But so let me start with the 3 whys, because I think that the 3 whys, when I was thinking about this presentation, I was trying to put myself in the shoes of everyone here. And I thought, okay, well, there's going to be some people who are selling for themselves. There are going to be some people who are managing salespeople. Most of the people here are probably, Trevor said, are not trained salespeople. So I'm someone who has more of a systemized approach to inspecting deals and thinking about deals and understanding if deals are really real. And it all starts with the 3 whys. And I think these 3 whys are probably the single best and single easiest way to tell if a deal that you're trying to sell to someone or that one of your people is presenting to you is actually, on a strong footing. Incidentally, these are also the best questions to ask if you're thinking about assessing a company's product that you may want to invest in. So the first question is, why do anything? Fundamentally, your biggest competitor is the status quo. Most people don't want to change. And so you have to have massive, compelling reason why they're going to choose your product or service. Like our largest customers spend north of $6 million a year with Amplitude. So we have to have a massively compelling why do anything to even qualify them talking to us. The second one is why your product or service. So now this customer, they can't sit in their status quo. It's costing them a ton of money, or there's a ton of unrealized like growth potential. The next thing you got to answer is like why your product or service is uniquely positioned to deliver for that customer. And then the last one is why now? Why do they have to do it within the time frame that you want them to do it? We're a public company. We have quarterly numbers that we report to Wall Street. And so understanding all three of these is basically where we start whenever we're talking to a salesperson about a deal. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is this concept of MEDDIC. And MEDDIC is a complementary framework that you can use. It's typically used when you're talking about a large or complicated purchase where you've got a number of people who have to sign off on it. But regardless, this is a good mental framework for you to think through whenever you're, again, inspecting or thinking through a deal. And really quickly, to go through MEDDIC, it's metrics. It stands for metrics. Are you attached to actual business metrics like growth or reducing costs? And do you have a good understanding of them? Number two is the economic buyer. Do you have an actual relationship with the person who signs on the dotted line? If you don't, then you need one. Do you understand the decision criteria and the decision process that this company is going to have to undertake to make a decision? Do you have a good understanding of the pain? And then there's two C's. One is for, do you have a champion? And a champion in sales is, do you have someone who is selling for you when you hang up the phone or you hang up the Zoom? Are they actually advocating for you? And the last C is competition. So these are two really, really basic fundamental frameworks that everyone here can use to get a better handle on whether you've got a real deal on your hands or whether there's gaps that you need to fill. So with that, Trevor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Brian. And so, as you can see, Brian, in terms of his approach, is really thinking about how to get proximity to that client first, right? Really understanding your value proposition to the marketplace and putting it through a process that we may not have in our business currently. So, thank you, Brian, for sharing that, because Brian is detail-oriented in his sales when he leads his team, and it's really important to get a really good concept of your story. And I know with the marketers in the room, it's really important to have that good story with your clients. Your prospects, I mean. The next one we wanted to bring forward is Jason. And Jason's background, if you get to know him, he's really exceptional at facilitating a client experience. He teaches companies how to do that. He's been consulting on sales for quite some time. So Jason, if you can just explain to the room, in terms of the creating proximity, how you use experiences and virtual closeness to change the way your target clients feel about you through the sales process.
Yeah, absolutely, Trevor. Thanks. Excuse me. Also, by the way, I'm under the weather, so my voice is kind of weird. Yeah, I think I would like to start firstly with understanding the customer journey. When I found out that most of my customers and most customers anywhere, 83% of the journey is done by themselves. They're not ready to talk to a salesperson. They're doing their own they're doing their own research on whatever product or service that they wanted to purchase or thinking about purchasing. And so they're really pushing salespeople back until they're ready to commit to, this is the idea that I've got. And once they have that, you really just are essentially trying to facilitate a fantastic customer experience to stand out amongst your competition, because once you're in an industry, there's going to be tons of other people. I'm from the payroll industry, and I like to say there's only one right answer. So I'm competing with literally anybody else who can do payroll right. So what I like to do from there is just after I understand that really I'm starting out as potentially no different than anyone else. I like to remember a phrase that I came up with, which is if a communication is anticipated, it's automatically discounted. And what that means is that, think back, if you're going to a Starbucks drive-through and you pull up, you don't immediately start talking. Someone says to you, and I'm sure everyone can mouth the words, "Welcome to Starbucks. Can I take your order?" Or literally any other fast food restaurant. That's because that's a learned experience of what Trevor was talking about earlier. Those are neurons connected in our brain that teach us a learned response and to wait and anticipate that response. And we have a response back. So once you understand that there's a kind of give and take in the sales process, and some people are expecting you to do something and automatically discount what you're going to say because they know what you're going to say, you have to kind of break that mold. You have to do something different. And so what I like to do when I start a relationship, I look on their LinkedIn, for example, and find out, hey, you've commented on something, or you've done a video, or you've done an article. Hey, this was a great article, by the way. We're having a webinar at the end of the month, or there's this article that I've come across. I thought it might be interesting to you because you wrote about it. And, I thought that, maybe we should connect later on in the future. Hope you have a great day. That's pretty much it. They don't expect you to not pitch them. What they want you to do is pitch them in the moment so they can automatically discount you and say, no, I'm good. It doesn't matter what you're selling. So I like to start the facilitation of an experience by basically creating reciprocity, just opening the door for them for me to give something without asking anything, and then to reap that benefit later on once I get to know them. And to do this, I use a lot of virtual tools, as Trevor mentioned, such as video. There's a great free app through Google Chrome called Vidyard. It's a video app that you record yourself on your screen, and you can send it and embed it in your Gmail. Just literally saying that, hey, saw your LinkedIn, thought your article on blank was amazing. We're having something that's related to this at the end of the month. Think you should come. Hope to talk to you maybe in a few weeks after the event. So I've already anchored another meeting, but I'm not asking for the meeting. I'm not asking for the sale. I'm literally just facilitating a different, and I would say, frankly, better experience than my competitors, because every other sales process is teaching you to attack first call, first kill. So I kind of start from there. How's that, Trevor?
That's great, Jay. Thank you. And I think what's really important to what Jay's saying is it's becoming very individualized in terms of your approach, right? What Jay does really well is he identifies the client and does a lot of pre-work before he gets into the sales process to create that experience. Finally, I'm just going to quickly talk about, if it moves, about partnerships and proximity. And Jason will smile because we've done a lot of this together in earlier years. So I look around the room and I see that we're already trying to create proximity by partnerships. The network here is a partnership, right? But who manages and are close to your clients, right? If I want to get to consultants, I go out and find partners that have already worked with consultants. If I want to get close to clients who are doing business, I may go create a relationship with their accountants. So I want everybody, when they walk away today, to think about how you can create proximity by creating partnerships. You may already do this, but a lot of the times it's something we don't spend enough time in sales considering, is how can get you in the room. And the reason I bring it up today is that we do it each and every month here in this business, right? In this community. And it's really important that you take some time to think about who your partners are and how they can deliver value to your business. So those are the three ways in which Brian, Jason, myself, and other members of the sales community to create proximity. So we're going to open it up to some questions. And I just have one more slide here. Why this is important is everybody's trying to find sales growth. And so you have individuals that are here to help you talk about ways in which to create growth. The 50,000-foot platform also has many sales consultants or consultants that specialize in sales. Just so you know, if it says sales consultant, that usually means it's a salesperson, but it's a consultant that specializes in sales. And so if you want to find ways in which to grow your business, we can do that with consulting. We can do that through fractional sales models, and we'd love to help. So I'm going to open up to questions, and you have Brian and Jason and myself for any revenue growth strategies or questions you may have. We love talking about sales.
So before we open it up to the wider room, Sean Smith is our referral strategist for this chapter. So he's gonna kickstart the Q&A, and I think he's probably got some of the questions that many of us are thinking about, and then we'll open it up for general questions in a few minutes. Sean.
I certainly do have those questions. First of all, Trevor and panel, tremendous presentation. Thank you very much. I think everyone has got a lot out of this, and I'm sure some questions are coming your way, starting with me. So I am a sales guy through and through, so I'm very comfortable selling and being in front of people. But if I'm not a salesperson, I'm not comfortable in sales, I'd like to get the three of you to comment on how would you approach your individual target being not comfortable in sales? How would you approach that? So, Trevor, do you want to start, or you can direct too? Yeah.
We'll let Jason go first because I see him nodding. Hey, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's very close to what I was mentioning earlier. I think people are afraid of sales because they're afraid of rejection. I know I've been in sales for well over 2 decades, and I still hate rejection. I can't hear that word no. So what I've done is essentially by using that reciprocity method and using the video, I've essentially taken no off the table, because I know there's a lot of people out there that really just I can't hear it, and it grinds my teeth every time I hear no, I'm not interested, even though they haven't heard my pitch yet. And so when you start a relationship by opening the door and creating reciprocity just by giving, and I know there's a lot of methodologies saying that you have to give to get. I'm a giver, so I like to just start by obviously understanding your target audience, creating almost an ABM strategy, like Trevor said, with a proximity to sales strategy, and just literally giving something. If it's somebody in the marketing sector, maybe looking at something like, hey, I saw this great article, or I saw this webinar, we're connected to something. Hope you can come to this webinar. I hope you read this article. Maybe I'll follow up in a few weeks and just get your thoughts on it. That's it. You don't have to hear no at that point. If they're interested, they're going to say yes. And to be honest with you, in my experience, only about 4 to 8% of your total territory or your total client list is ready to say yes at any given moment. Everyone else is kind of a no or a maybe. Or maybe a not yet is a better way to describe it. So I like that approach better, especially if you're really not into sales or hardcore sales tactics, which a lot of people are fearful of, and I totally get it. I think would start with reciprocity, and I think you'll find it a lot easier and a lot more results as well.
Thanks, Jay. Brian, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jason's point about giving is critical. I was going to definitely highlight that. So second that. I think the other thing that I would say, though, is that you all have networks of people. They can be your neighbors, your friends, your former colleagues, your existing colleagues. They can give you warm intros to people who, I'm thinking more about the sole proprietors in the audience, or those with a smaller business where you're just looking to have conversations. And the most important thing you can do is, ask friends and family and former colleagues for warm introductions, and have coffee, have lunch, meet in person. Like, the big thing that is a real problem in sales right now is coming out of COVID. There's a whole bunch of people who think it can just all be done online. And especially if you're selling anything of consequence, people buy based on personal relationships. There's just no getting away from it. So that would be the first thing I would say. And then I think the second thing is for those of us who, I can consider myself like a driven person, and you're like, but why am I going to take, an hour and a half out of my day to go have a coffee with someone I barely know? And I think the more you're in sales, the more you realize that that's where magic often happens. Yeah, you're going to have some duds in there, but those coffees are where connections are made, and connections are uncovered that you don't expect. And one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden you've got an intro to someone you really wanted. So definitely the giving part, but the second thing is like get out of the office and have lunch, have coffee. You got to create these personal relationships, or if you manage salespeople, like definitely, force them out of the office, and you'll see results that way.
Thanks, Brian. The only other thing I'd add is what a lot of people don't realize, everybody's got a talent for sales. You got to make it your angle, right? So if you're technical, then your sales approach needs to be really technically creative, right? If you're a people person, then it's like Brian and Jay are saying, get out there, start talking to people. Just really consider who you are, and that helps to generate your sales approach because it's really important that it's authentic. Sales needs to be authentic, so really think who you are.
Thanks to all three for the answers. I think the only thing I'll add to that is when you're a business owner or a leader in a business, you sell every day, whether you know it or not. You're selling internally to your team. You're trying to guide them, motivate them, just a different type of sale. So take that natural track that you have internally and just expose it to your network. It's amazing how effective that is. So anyways, thanks again, gentlemen, for those answers. Now I'm going to open up to the floor. Do we have any questions, comments? Come on, you got three tremendous individuals up here that you can tap into. Hold on a sec. Katrina.
Okay, so really great panel. Thanks for that. Quick question about partnerships. I've done quite a bit of partnership stuff with my own company. Curious to know how you've seen partnerships structured really effectively, and how you've seen some of your clients actually choose partnerships that have really benefited them. And anything you can share about that, like examples, would be super helpful.
Yeah, let me jump into that one, guys, and then I'll let you go in. So that is a great question, because partnerships is an amazing way to get proximity. It's also an amazing way to waste your time. And I know that sounds weird, but it's also an amazing way. So when you're structuring a partnership, you have to have really tough conversations at the beginning about expectations, okay? And that's really key. So what you want to do is you want to be very serious about setting your goals, and that's goals for you and goals for them. And there has to be a very well-defined alignment, okay? When there isn't an alignment between you and that organization, where they don't have a good direction to introduce you to their clients, then it's probably not going to be very effective. So it's a great question. In terms of, you asked different structures, I know a ton of different structures. I'd love to talk to you about that. We'll do that offline, because I can name 25 different structures to partnerships. But the key is to have the really tough discussion up front about what that expectation is and measure that expectation. Because a lot of the times we sign partnerships, we don't execute partnerships, right? So it's really key to have that really tough conversation, which is our goal is X number of opportunities for each other this year, and measure to that. And if you don't make it, you have a tough conversation. Okay, so that's a really good point. Brian or Jay, do you guys have any other additions to that?
I'll go quickly, Trevor. I mean, I think this is an obvious one, but it's critical, which is the incentives have to be aligned. Like if you're going to a partner and you want them to start selling on your behalf, like there has to be as much in it for them to sell your product or service as it is selling everything else that they do. There has to be some truly compelling reason for them to interrupt what they're doing throughout the day to to help you out. Like, I think that where partnerships fall apart is on the like good intention side. Like you show up, you got a warm intro through someone in your network. Yes, you've got everything makes sense on paper. Like, yeah, let's go out and try and like create some opportunities for each other. But unless there's like massive business justification, like they're going to make money or they're going to grow their business in some way by working with you, then I just haven't seen it actually take hold.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only thing I could add, these are both great recommendations. I think obviously once you've done all of the things that Trevor have said, because those are great advice, and you provide that gap analysis, like what can I offer that you can't, and what can you offer that I can't, how this partnership is going to work. I think it's one of those things for partnerships where you get into the trap of set it and forget it. So you have an initial meeting and you're saying, this sounds great, awesome, let's execute. And then you follow up, never. I think continuous course correction and alignment. Businesses change, people in those businesses change. And I think just like, when you're on a flight, there's a million different tiny course corrections through the journey. You really need to make sure that everyone's alignment is still aligned, essentially, and the goal is in mind, and it has that cheese hasn't moved. And making sure that you're always, updating of like, hey, here's what's going on in my business, what's going on in your business, educating the customer, just like your part in the partnership, and them educating you as well, because you just want to be top of mind and when any of those opportunities come up.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. I have a question from the virtual members here, from Martin. A question from him says, what sales books are you reading or would you recommend?
Brian, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm happy to go. So I mentioned a couple, Medic by Andy White, Qualified Sales Leader by John McMahon. Both of those deal with software and like more complex sales, I would say, so larger ticket items. But those are, the reason I like those two is because they're written by practitioners. They're not written by academics. I think that the other one that's kind of top of mind for me is not strictly a sales book, although I think a lot of salespeople read it. It's Influence by Robert Cialdini, which is a classic of persuasion and that sort of thing. So those would be the three, and I'll paste them in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Jay, do you have any to add?
Yeah, you know what? I've probably read, I don't know how many sales books in my career. Every time I join a new company, they hand me like two or three. I think probably one of the best just books related to sales, and it was more of a marketing book, is Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. It's fantastic because it just comes up. It just talks about different ways to get around a problem, essentially, and just being a little bit more out of the box, how to solve challenges, business challenges, and just thinking about it in a non-conventional way. If you haven't read it, I mean, it's fantastic. He's got a bunch of YouTube videos. You may have seen them on TED Talk about. He's talking about a train, how to make an experience, more enjoyable, where he'd rather, instead of making it longer or shorter, that he'd rather just have free drinks and topless servers and stuff like that. It was just an interesting way of perspective of looking at a problem. But those types of ideas, I think that you have to be very agile in business today, and you got to think of things non-linearly. You have to think about multiple different angles about attacking your business at any given time. So I would say Alchemy by Rory Sutherland.
Thank you very much. And yeah, if you can post those in the chat, all four of them, that would be great. I'm going to hijack the last question. So before I do that, I'm going to suggest that any questions, obviously post-presentation, please come speak to Trevor. Again, Jason, Brian, thank you very, very much. Appreciate the contributions. So my question to you, Trevor, is what type of sales consultants are you going to find on the platform?
In terms of on 50,000 foot and like the gentleman here, The sales consultants you're going to find is individuals who are excellent at one of two things, okay? Or maybe both. They're excellent at building out your strategy, your plan, and discovering where you should be targeting yourself. Or you're going to find consultants that are good at the implementation, execution of that plan, okay? And what's growing on our site is fractional sales leadership. So think of the fractional or CMOs, the fractional CFOs. What's growing is fractional sales leadership. Say you're growing a portion of your business, but you can't commit the time to grow the sales to that. Well, the consultants help you grow that side of that business. So there's lots of different types of consulting support because sales is becoming really important in terms of getting external advice on how to manage the changing market space. So I can help you introduce you to consultants, and I'd love to talk to you about that also. Thank you for giving Brian, Jay, and myself time today. We could have went on with a ton of different stories about sales and how we, Jay's smiling because we've traveled all over the country together. Lucky him. But we would love to talk sales with you if you have any questions. Thanks for your time.